It is simply magnificent, home to some of the most exquisite creatures on Earth. And George W. Bush wants to drill for oil there. In Alaska, about as far north as you can go, is the previously untouched Arctic refuge. The US Congress has already voted in support of President Bush's plans. Now all that's needed is for the Senate to agree, and the big trucks of big oil will start moving in. In America, it's being compared to drilling through the Barrier Reef. This bitter environmental fight has also set two native tribes against each other. One wants a share of the profits, the other fears their way of life is doomed.
For oil and natural gas on our own continent. I believe we need to open up ANWR, which is in Alaska, and believe we can do so in an environmentally friendly way.
ANWR, as the locals know it, is Alaska's Arctic National Wildlife Refuge. It's also the place America's new president regards as a potential liquid gold mine.
When that field is online, it will produce 1 million barrels a day.
This is the ugliness of the industry that nobody really wants to see again. That's what
there is already oil development on the edge of ANWR, massive drill sites that virtually surround the refuge. The north coast of Alaska is one of the world's biggest oil fields. In the summer, the huge pipelines and soaring flames dominate the landscape. In the winter, it looks like a scene out of some sub-zero Mad Max. Opponents of the drilling say enough is enough. The refuge is just too precious to let George Bush let in the big trucks and big pipelines of big oil.
President Bush wants to go in the Arctic refuge, I believe, in large part because of the symbolic value. I think he believes that every square inch of land that has oil in it should be developed for oil and gas potential.
Deborah Williams is on the side of the conservationists. As director of the Alaskan Conservation Foundation, she heads up a national campaign to stop George Bush.
This place supports the largest denning concentration of polar bears on land in the United States. It, of course, is the calving ground of the porcupine caribou herd, 120,000 strong. It is the nesting and breeding grounds of the snow geese. It is the wintering grounds and the summering grounds of the muskox. It harbors migratory birds from 3 different continents. It is an extraordinary place for wildlife. Just as in Australia, you wouldn't want to drill for oil at Wilson's Promontory or Kangaroo Island or the Great Barrier Reef. there are precious places in the United States that cannot and should not be developed for oil.
We're talking about one little piece in the extreme corner. It's not the end of the world, but you can probably see it from there, that I think if I had to pick a place in North America or in the United States to develop oil, I'd pick there pretty quick.
In the oil company's corner is their spokesman, Ken Boyd.
And it's all put into the pipe, and it comes out the other end and is loaded
He's
on
proud
ships.
of the existing development in Alaska and excited about finding even more oil in the coastal plain of the previously protected refuge, an area he regards not so much as wilderness, but wasteland.
But the coastal plain is not a spectacular wilderness. The coastal plain looks like the rest of the North Slope, which is a flat, treeless, not particularly attractive place. It's winter most of the year, and it's full of mosquitoes when it isn't winter.
Nature's great spectacles. And being here to witness it, it's difficult to understand why America would risk disrupting it. But this wildest of wild places is hard to get to and easy to overlook when you're thousands of kilometres to the south in Washington.
A lot of people really don't care where their oil comes from as long as they can get it. They don't care if it comes from, the rainforests of Colombia or whatever.
Senator Frank Murkowski represents Alaska in the US Senate. To him, drilling in ANWR is not only a matter of time, it's a matter of national importance. America, he says, faces a looming energy crisis and must find alternative sources of oil.
The United States has been able to prosper as a world power by having an abundance of low-cost energy. It's affected our standard of living, the manner in which we live. It's very important to most Americans that we maintain that.
How determined is the Bush administration to push ahead with this drilling?
I don't think there's any question that the Bush administration stands very fast in believing that it's in the national energy security of this country to open it, and we can do it safely in consideration with the ecology and the environment.
But in reply, conservationists have just two words for the good senator: Exxon Valdez. The 1989 oil tanker spill destroyed vast tracts of Alaska's pristine coastline.
What the Exxon Valdez spill showed us is that even when people are trying hard, when you industrialize an area, industrial accidents happen. And when you industrialize an area in a pristine ecosystem, the impacts of those accidents can be massive.
Is there a possibility of accidents? Yes, there are. Yeah, there is a finite risk. I think the risk is lower here than in many places, again, because of the very high standard that companies operate at.
This row over the refuge hasn't just set oil companies against conservationists, but it's bitterly divided Alaska's native tribes. On one side, there's the Gwich'ins, led by their chief, Yvonne Peter. The land the oil men want is land they regard as sacred. The caribou and their annual migration provides not only meat for the winter, but a spiritual basis for their belief.
When I was 10 years old, and the hunters came down from over the mountain where they hunt, they said, come with me, we want you to see something. And we looked out, and maybe about 40,000 caribou were coming from, like ants, rolling over the hills and around the lakes and coming through the country all around us. Now, when you look at the history of oil companies in the world, or even today, the record certainly doesn't show that they can develop land and not harm the animals.
But the oil companies have won the support of Alaska's other indigenous people, the Eskimos. Two tribes, the Gwich'ins and the Eskimos, are now at war, a public relations war.
It could make life a little bit easier and a little bit better for us. I don't think anybody locally will get rich off of this.
Lonson Sala is mayor of the Eskimo village of Kaktovik, on the very edge of the polar ice.
There's about 260 people in the village.
Life in Kaktovik is rough. It feels like winter most of the year. The locals are angry that their desire for heating and basic services seems to have been forgotten by environmentalists.
They've taken this to be the spot where they've marked a line. Well, we're marking a line on the ground here. Well, unfortunately, this is the ground that we live on. And if this is such a nirvana and special place to all these people, I don't know why environmental groups don't have at least some people living here or stationed here or spending more time than just a couple hours here in the summertime.
I just simply think they don't have all of the information. There has to be a line in the cement, and this is the line. You do not cross over this line to develop oil and gas in a biological heartland, a crown jewel. The likely oil that is under this precious area can be saved by small amounts of conservation. If the American vehicle fleet increased its efficiency by 1 to 2 miles per gallon, you would save more oil than you could produce from that area.
In the end, the fact that the Arctic refuge is so unknown to most Americans may count dearly against it. Americans who consume 1/4 of the world's energy may decide that cheap petrol is more important than preserving some far-off Arctic wilderness.
Things that we take for granted, like an ample supply of energy at a relatively low price, has to come from somewhere.
It's not about greed, it's not about making money.
No, it's about the reality that Americans are used to a plentiful supply, an affordable supply, to address their standard of living. They don't want to lower that standard of living.
And that's the bottom line.
That's the bottom line.
For now, the caribou are free to roam unconcerned by pipelines and drilling rigs, unaware that their future is being measured by a far greater herd beyond the borders of their refuge. Hello, I'm Liz Hayes. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9 Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.